Good afternoon and welcome to Politics in the Pulpit here on your hometown station. This is your holy host back for another opportunity to talk about the two things we're not supposed to talk about, religion and politics, and they indeed do mix. Got a great show for you today. I will talk to you a little bit about our guest in just a few moments here, but I wanted to go ahead and throw out a few shameless plugs. On June 28th, we are having a red, white, and blue concert at the Freedom's Way Baptist Church. That is a Saturday evening at 5 p.m. At least that's the time right now that we're going with. And Santa Clarita Valley Concert Band will be playing all kinds of patriotic music to get you in the mood for the July the 4th Independence Day celebration that is literally just around the corner, folks. So that's June 28th at Freedom's Way Baptist Church. You can find it online at freedomswaybaptistchurch.org, and encourage you to come out and enjoy some great patriotic, American-loving music. Also, if you are interested in politics in the pulpit commercial-free, you can find several archives of our show on Rumble, if that is a platform that you like to utilize. I'd encourage you to go over there to Politics in the Pulpit, check us out, give us a like, share the stuff as much as you can, and encourage you to check us out there on Rumble, Politics and the Pulpit. Our guest today is calling in from Riverside, and some of you know who Jessica Tapia is. Jessica Tapia is a former Yorupa Valley High School student, athlete. Ms. Tapia developed a strong desire to teach and mentor students at the Yorupa Unified School District. Her passion for both teaching and sports led Ms. Tapia to pursue a physical education teaching position at the same high school she attended as a student. And it was just a little over a year ago when she was unceremoniously fired for her religious convictions, her Christian religious convictions. And, of course, there was just a settlement taken care of there for $360,000 more than a year after she was fired. And finally, they ended up settling with her. Jessica, how are you today? Welcome to Politics in the Pulpit.
Hi, I'm doing well. How are you?
I am doing well, Jessica. First of all, how are you doing today? And how are the kids? And how are everything in Riverside County?
Good. It's a beautiful day. We were just outside doing some homeschool flashcards and gardening and playing with the chickens. So just living the life outside of government education. I'm so glad God kind of rescued me out because he rescued my kids out of it as well. Thankfully, they never landed there yet, but they were headed that way, but not anymore.
You mentioned chickens, so I guess you don't have to worry about $9 a dozen egg prices, right?
You know what? They're not laying yet.
Uh-oh.
We just got them a couple months ago. So we're still buying eggs, but hopefully that will come to an end in a couple months.
Well, Jessica, there's a lot of folks that know who you are, and there's some who may not, but I gave a little bit of a rundown of what occurred in your life just in the last couple of years. But could you just kind of take us through the journey that has led you to where you are today?
Sure, yeah. So I felt strongly called to become a teacher. I kind of, in college, really when it was time to decide what exactly am I going to do for a career, looking back on things I had already done between tutoring and coaching and swim lessons, it was very clear to me that teaching was a gift God gave me. So I decided to become a PE teacher because even though I was a straight A student, I did well in all the different subjects. My passion was definitely in athletics and sports, so it just made sense to become a PE teacher. And so that's what I did, and I ended up right back at the school district that I was part of as a student ever since I was in fifth grade. And so I was in my sixth year of teaching. I was tenured. I was specifically at the high school me and my husband had met at, and it was just, an honor to be right back there and get to kind of pour into students in the same way that was done for me from many teachers and coaches. But then all of a sudden, one day, I'm ripped out of my class and escorted to the office where there were several higher-ups sitting in a room waiting for me to let me know that I was being placed on paid administrative leave and going under investigation because students had found my social media and taken issue to several of my posts there. And it was only maybe a month or two before that where I had started kind of changing what I was doing with social media and felt like God was calling me to just speak bold truths into, the culture of the day. And so that's what I had begun doing. And essentially, through my social media, students found clearly that I am not pro-LGBTQ. I'm especially not for it when it's being pushed on children. And they just went on a hunt. They actually ended up sending several screenshots from my Jesus highlight on Instagram into my school district and basically told the district that they felt I was disrespectful and discriminatory towards them now that they had found my Christian beliefs, I guess you could say. And so it was like the flip of a switch. I went from being a very looked upon very highly as a teacher and a former student athlete of the district to now I had, in their eyes, done something so bad and so wrong, and they had to determine what were they going to do with me next. So they placed these transgender directives on me, which required me to call students by their preferred pronouns, lie to their parents about it, let boys in my girls' locker room, and even told me I would need to stop posting about God and the Bible on my social media in case students were to find my posts again and be offended. And so I was extremely convicted over these directives that were being placed on me. I just knew I could not comply with those things. It already felt like I would have to become someone completely different to just show up to work and appease them and forego my beliefs. So I went on stress leave, and that's where I really, had to get alone with the Lord and say, what are you calling me to do here? This is a huge decision for me to make. If I stand bold here in the truth, I'm going to lose my job. But if I don't, then what kind of woman of God am I? And so I'm so grateful that he led me to just take a stand and speak out against these directives and say I cannot comply with them because they go against my Christian beliefs. Because that was certainly the right thing to do there, but I was tempted for a while to even just resign and walk away, which would have been giving up in the face of evil and not exposing it and calling it out. So when I did that and spoke from my Christian beliefs, the district determined that they can't accommodate my Christian beliefs and were going to fire me. So that's what happened January 2023. I immediately knew I had already been in conversation with lawyers before that, but immediately knew, well, now I have a lawsuit because my First Amendment rights, my religious liberty has just been violated. And so we immediately began a lawsuit. I worked with Advocates for Faith and Freedom, the incredible legal ministry, essentially, of California. They are the ones who are representing so many different pastors, school personnel, you name it. They have many tip-of-the-spear cases, and I reached out to them from the advice of Charlie Kirk and Pastor Jack Hibbs, and God definitely led me to them for a reason, and they fought for me for a year, and we came to that settlement victory last year, which certainly sent a message. I really watched my story go viral again, kind of go around the world. I get messages still from people in other countries. But with that settlement victory, my story spread again, and it was just so cool over the past 2 years to see how God can just take our obedience and do so much with it, like far beyond what we could ever imagine. But we have to be willing to obey to the point that it costs us and it requires sacrifice. But that's such a beautiful opportunity to surrender and trust in him and really get to see him show up in your life and provide and bless you because you're no longer, in control. For us, we lost my $90,000 teaching salary. We really were positive we'd have to sell our home and live in an RV, but that hasn't happened. That did not happen because God showed up miraculously, and I just truly believe he honored me for honoring him.
And just to be clear for our listeners, Jessica, we're talking to Jessica Tapia, former teacher with Europa Unified School District, who just recently got an awesome settlement for her firing. All you did was post on your private social media in reference to department stores and their marketing of LGBTQ clothing, and I'm assuming places like Target and other places like that were really going big for the whole LGBTQ agenda a couple of years ago. So they got a hold of your private Instagram, your private social media stuff, and that's what they were complaining about.
Correct. Yes, it was nothing that I did in class as a teacher, which was so interesting because there was never an allegation made against me until students found my personal social media page where, yes, I had made a reel in Kohl's one day when I was shopping, and I was just kind of overwhelmed by all of this Pride clothing I was surrounded by. But that day I learned they are making this stuff now for toddlers and babies. And I just felt honestly like a righteous anger about that. And I made a reel, and that's the first one that caught students' attention. And then it seemed from there they really just went digging on my page. Like I said, they specifically ended up in my Jesus highlight where I just had verted quotes of the faith, and they actually these became exhibits in my investigation. I still have them in this paper packet today, where they're laid out as exhibits as for what I did wrong, which was so mind-blowing, right? That a teacher posting a Bible verse could end her up in the district office and about to be terminated. But that is where we are today, because we have tolerated so much evil ideology that now if you hold a belief of truth that challenges these evil ideologies, then you do start to be looked at as a dangerous and discriminatory and disrespectful, and all the names in the book I've been called and gotten all the various threats.
There's no doubt in my mind. There's no doubt in my mind, Jessica, that I believe that you, just like other believers in not only the school district but in other places of professional business, are being targeted specifically.
Right.
I believe that the righteous indignation you were talking about, in reference to maybe the Lord Jesus Christ coming into the temple and seeing all the money changers, and then doing exactly what the progressive Christians would never think Jesus would ever do, which is to
Right.
make a cord of whips and whip everybody out of the temple and say, listen, this is a house of prayer, not a house of thieves. Now, when just for the sake of our listeners, Jessica, excuse me. You had no issues with these students prior to them finding your social media site, correct?
Correct. And I didn't even have, to my knowledge, any transgender students in my class, which was so bizarre because my whole case basically was formed around hypotheticals, and my district determined to fire me based off how I would respond to hypothetical situations with a transgender student. And as Christians, we're not going to treat anyone any differently. I would have loved a quote unquote transgender student in the same way I love and care for and teach all the rest of my students. But the thing is, we now have very different views of what love is. And as Christians, we know that love isn't just love. It's also truth. And quite frankly, it's not love at all without truth. And so, again, they took major issue to the fact that I said I'll love my transgender students by holding firm to the truth and not going along with the lie they're being told about possibly being born in the wrong body. And I'm certainly not going to then go ahead and lie to their parents about it like you're asking me to do because you believe the student deserves safety and privacy from their own parents. And then I'm certainly not going to let a child that I know is a male into my female locker room. So all very basic, like common sense, factual, truth-based, just actions and beliefs that I was saying I was going to live out and not be complying with their directives. And again, that was a major issue for them to the point that they decided I would be unsafe to students if they continued to, allow me to be a teacher, that they could even possibly receive lawsuits from parents because of me and my beliefs. So they decided it was best to get rid of me, which I would guess that they maybe realize now that was not the best decision, really, because they went all over the media for the last couple of years. And really, again, like God just took what was meant for evil upon me and used it for the greater good to expose this and to give courage to other Christian teachers and to wake up parents. I've had so many message me and say, like, we were praying about homeschooling. We saw your story. That was our answer. And so, again, just I would say that the greatest reward in all of this is just getting to sit back and watch how God can and will use our obedience. But the obedience part, it's not always, it's really not usually going to be easy at all, but it will be worth it.
You'd mentioned something interesting. You said even our definitions of love are different. And I posted this not too long ago. I said all of our culture war clashes are battles over editorial control of the dictionary. He who controls the definition of words controls the narrative. And if you and I have noticed in the last 5 to 10 years that words are taking on completely different definitional meanings than when we, than it was 10 years ago. Like love, for instance, we have to affirm everybody. We have to love everyone. Well, the thing is, if we understand 1 Corinthians chapter 13, we understand that love there, or charity, depending on the translation that you use, love endures things, but it also opens things and reveals things, and doesn't love doesn't embrace or tolerate untruth, and so. We have to be honest about not only our convictions as Christians, but we have to be honest about a lot of things that unfortunately our culture are going to balk against. Jessica, when we come back, I want to talk to you and our listeners about advocates for faith and freedom and the fact that you now are the public relations advocate for Advocates for Faith and Freedom. We'll talk a little bit about Robert Tyler, the general counsel there with Advocates, as well as I want to talk to you about another stupid bill that the Democrats are trying to ramrod, facing this notion of 16 and 17-year-olds not making it a felony to solicit sex for 16 and 17-year-olds, and the Democrats, of course, are at it again. When we come back here on Politics in the Pulpit, we'll continue our conversation with Jessica Tapia on the other side of the break.
There are many memorable restaurants in Santa Clarita, but 3 words stand out from the crowd. Mom can cook.
Mamá puede cocinar.
Mom can cook the best Thai food on this side of the planet.
Mama fait la cuisine.
No matter what language you use, Mom can cook says it all. Thai food at its finest, all your favorite dishes and Mom's very own original specialties. Experience it on Soledad by the Canyon Country Post Office.
Mama 요리가 좋으세요?
Mom can cook.
Hi, I'm Susan Owen, Managing Partner at OPO Law. When it comes to vehicle injury cases, experience matters. We bring nearly 50 years of expertise to the table, something no other firm can match. Our seasoned legal team knows every insurance tactic, every legal loophole, and how to get you the compensation you deserve. With decades of wins behind us, we fight relentlessly to secure the best possible outcome. If you've been injured in a vehicle accident, don't settle for less. 888-OPO-WINS or opolaw.com.
Hometown, your hometown station.
All right, we're back here for our second segment of Politics in the Pulpit here on your hometown station. This is your holy host, the Bishop of Santa Clarita, Pastor Jerry Cook. Again, back for another opportunity to talk about the two things we're not supposed to talk about, religion and politics. And my guest, Jessica Tapia, says they do mix. By the way, do religion and politics mix in the Tapia household?
Absolutely. We base our politics off of our Bible, really, and I think that is what all Christians should do. But sadly, so many Christians are convinced that there are no politics in the Bible, which is crazy to me.
You know what's funny to me is I always look back at the COVID years, and obviously, there were several of us pastors that never closed down our churches. Yours truly is one of them, and there were several things about the negative of the COVID years that I think are positives. And one of those things is to expose the public school system. And a lot of these parents, sitting in to these Zoom classes and listening to the smut and some of the things that the teachers were teaching to their kids. And I think it was an eye-opening thing for them. So just as you'd mentioned earlier, Romans 8:28 and in the account of Joseph from Genesis 50, where they meant it for evil, but God meant it for good. There's no doubt that COVID, as bad as it was, especially with folks who succumbed to the illness of
Right.
COVID, it opened the eyes of a lot of people. And really, your story, in many ways, may not even have been heard if it wasn't for some of the insanity that kind of came out of the whole COVID situation.
Right, yeah, it's like COVID, you're spot on there. It kind of prepped, it kind of paved the way, right, for essentially it was, 2 years? Yeah, 2 years after COVID, when we are kind of still freshly back at school, getting used to being in person again. Boom, this whole thing happens to me, and it really comes alive for myself, for teachers, for parents, that there are literal policies and even laws here in California that are demanding the special rights of transgender identifying students. And this is affecting all students and all teachers and all parents. So again, really, really grateful to see so many parents wake up, but sadly so many are still asleep to it and will stay asleep until it's knocking at their front door. And that's kind of what happened to me. I thought it would never be at my school in my district, and then it was right in my lap, and I had to face it head on.
Now, you find yourself, if we fast forward here, Jessica, you find yourself as a public relations advocate for faith and freedom. And I know Bob Tyler a little bit, general counsel and president of Advocates for Faith and Freedom. Great guy. I know that they represent all kinds of churches and ministries, and they do pro bono work. And so tell us a little bit about how you find yourself, other than, of course, them representing you, how you find yourself to be part of the PR relations, if you will, for the Advocates for Faith and Freedom.
Yeah, it was such a blessing and really full circle moment for them to offer me a part-time position from home so I could continue homeschooling my kids, but again, also be able to survive here in California. And I think ultimately what really made me excited to say yes about this was it is a ministry, and seeing what they had done for me as a Christian teacher who could have no way ever afforded a lawsuit, but because of this amazing legal ministry that represents persecuted Christians pro bono, I was able to have a story. I was able to fight for justice. So I get to work for them now and do a variety of different things. But what I love is they were Advocates for Faith and Freedom. With the church closures during COVID, they played a really, really crucial role in that. And as a matter of fact, we still have a couple lawsuits going based out of things that were happening to churches during COVID. One specifically was there was geofencing set up around the church by the county, and they were tracking people coming in and out of the church and then fined the church millions of dollars. And that's one church we're representing, and talk about government overreach, right? But what I loved is when a group of pastors came together during COVID, decided this is insane. We're not going to view church as non-essential. We're opening back up, and let's do it. They invited Bob Tyler onto the call. Of course, they knew they would probably need a lawyer overseeing their plan to reopen, and he said, go for it. And that's something I appreciate about him so much is, yes, he's a lawyer and he looks at the law, but he very much operates out of faith as well. And so the churches, the bold and brave pastors who were willing to open back up, Pastor Rob McCoy was one of the first ones to do so. And there's this amazing news clip of Bob, and he's asked about this church reopening, and I think the news anchor says something like, well, are you going to be allowed to do that? And his response is, we're not asking for permission.
Yeah.
And it's exactly that, right? When we sit here and realize, like, painted throughout the Bible and various different stories is this idea that is very true, which says sometimes godly obedience requires civil disobedience.
Yeah.
And so it's not that we're out here trying to, break laws and, disrespect those in authority. But we do have a decision to make when those in authority over us are asking us to do things that are not in line with how God has called us to live. And so that's exactly what Advocates for Faith and Freedom does, is represent those brave individuals who are willing to partake in civil disobedience, I guess you could say, and end up being persecuted for it. We have one new case right now of a nurse who simply said, I cannot take part in transgender surgeries, and she was fired for that. And so, the more Christians rise up, the more they're going to need people like advocates who will step in and represent them and fight for them. And they're just such a blessing. So I'm honored to work for them, to help them find people who want to partner with their ministry. That's crucial, again, with it being pro bono. We're really only able to take on the cases we do because of people who want to partner with us in what we do. Churches who want to host us for, a religious liberty night. We love doing that. But really, I think our biggest heart is for Christians to know that they have religious liberty, and that at no point whatsoever do you have to forego your beliefs, because of someone in authority or because of the government or because of a career. Our faith in God is supposed to be first. And if
folks,
only more Christians treated it that way, I don't think we'd even be where we are. But we've allowed people to push us around too much.
No, you're completely right. And by the way, if folks want to find out more about Faith and Freedom, it's faithandfreedom.com. And is there another website that you can mention there, Jessica?
Yeah, so it's faith-freedom.com.
There it
is.
You
can inquire about legal help there. You can check out our current cases. There's a donate tab there if you'd like to partner with us. But you're also able to access our page, and specifically a page we made of resources coming out of my lawsuit victory called teachersdon'tlie.com. It will, again, take you right to our advocates page, but it's specifically a page of resources for teachers who might find themselves in the same situation I was in with these directives that they really should not be complying with as Christians, and just some guidance on how to respond, how to seek legal help, how to, push back. And so we created that, so that's a quick and easy way to get to our page as well, teachersdon'tlie.com.
Okay. Before I ask you about a couple of people that are running for higher office there in Riverside County, I don't know, I guess all of the really talented people must come out of Riverside County for some reason. But anyway, I'll ask you about Sheriff Chad Bianco and, of course, Sonia Shaw, one of your friends as well. I wanted to ask you, how's the home life? I mean, obviously, things have been upended in your life the last couple of years since your firing there at Eurupin. Of course, the Lord bless with the settlement. We're thankful and grateful for that. But what about Mr. Tapia? Tell us about him.
Yeah, everything I went through, it affected him as well, for the better, for sure. We both watched both of our faith be refined in the fire, so to say. And I mean, we are both just like reading the Word of God more now, and we're reading it with a different lens now too, because it's like you open up the Psalms and you're just like, wait, is this talking about me, about what I went through? Because it feels like it. Like, it's just so relatable when you really, go through the fire because you choose civil disobedience, right? Like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. I relate so much to that. I relate so much to Esther, where she was like, I'm going to go do something even though it's against the law, and if I perish, I perish. Like, I'm like, oh my goodness, like that. I didn't even realize till after I did what I did that it was so Esther-like. Like, God blessed me with the Esther attitude of, if I'm fired, I'm fired.
Yeah.
And it really was an attitude I had to take on in order to stand in the truth and do what I did. And so, yeah, I always say it brought our faith alive. We were both raised Christians, but I think things were kind of dull for us, and it was like a match that struck our faith on fire again, and now we just never want it to go out.
Yeah.
And we really try to look at the different hardships that come our way, which we still definitely face those, and really are actually in a season right now, and we have a different perspective on trials and affliction now, and really view it as just another opportunity to trust Him and surrender to Him, and not worry, because we're working and we're living from victory, not for it. It can get so easy to just strive for control and for success. But I really learned, actually specifically from Pastor Rob McCoy, that as Christians, we win the second we choose God.
Yeah.
And
I used to say during COVID, Jessica, that submission to tyranny is rebellion against God. And the moment you submit to tyranny, you are rebelling against God. And I think of the Hebrew midwives in the book of Exodus, who when the Pharaoh said, hey, I want you to kill all the firstborn males, and they're like, no, we're not going to do that. We much rather obey God rather than men, which is essentially what the disciples said in Acts chapter 5. I wanted to quickly, before we get to the end of our time together here, Jessica, and again, thank you so much for calling into Politics in the Pulpit today here. And again, Jessica Tapia is who we're talking to today, if you're just joining us. Obviously, some really talented people are coming out of Riverside County. We had the privilege of hosting a meet and greet for Sheriff Chad Bianco a few weeks ago. We did a special broadcast with him here at KHTS a few weeks ago as well. And, of course, your friend and my friend Sonia Shaw is running for Superintendent of Public Education. She has yet to make a big formal announcement, but we're going to try to do a meet and greet for her, and she was on our show a few weeks ago as well. So what's going on in Riverside? Is there something in the water?
I don't know. You know what? You're the first one to point that out to me, that we've got some people just taking a stand, just grassroots people who have just such a heart for the Lord, for protecting children, for parental rights, for the Constitution, and for California. Really, that's what describes both of those friends of mine, and I'm so proud of them, because I feel like I'm sure you do. I know my church does. The churches who aren't afraid to talk about politics, they often encourage us as, your average individuals, to stand up and run for office, right? Because we sit here and we are so critical of people in office, but yet I don't see any of us running. So it's like, finally, good people are standing up and obeying God's call on their life to run for office, even though deep down they probably loathe politics, like I know I do. But again, we can't sit here and say, I hate politics, but not be doing anything about it to make it any better. So I'm so proud of them. I 100% back both of them. So thank you for having them on your show and to your church. And I'm just really excited, again, what God will do. Many people, might view them as, the little man, the underdog, the one who stands no chance against, some of these other big people who are backed by all kinds of money. But I just can't help but think of David and Goliath. Like, no one could have imagined David conquering like he did, but he had God, and that's all he needed.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited.
Well, we have at least two people from Riverside, Chad Bianco and Sonia Shaw, but we should make it a trinity. Is there a political future for Jessica Tapia?
Oh, gosh, I hope not. But again, I will be obedient to the Lord if that's his call. But I hope that for the next several years I can just, focus on homeschooling my kids and just pouring in all the wisdom and knowledge possible for them so that, they have a very bright future. But maybe when they are a little more independent, if God opens a door or puts a call on my life, I will do that.
Well, you're doing the most important thing, and it is indeed a ministry, and it's not only a ministry but in better society to have kids that have not only education from a biblical perspective, but then the nurturing and admonition from godly parents as well. So we appreciate that very much. I wanted you to put on a political hat real quick here before we let you go. Do you think 2026 is finally going to be the year that California says goodbye to one-party rule and, hey, let's give the Republicans a try? What say you, Jessica Tapia?
I do think so. I think at this point, just enough people have had it. I mean, it's all been exposed, right? There's no hidden agenda anymore. It's just agenda, and we all see it. And we are the majority, those of us with common sense, and even those of us with a biblical foundation. And I think we are beyond ready for a change. I just hope that we elect in the right candidate, because I think right now we have two that could really change California, but there's definitely one that is more biblically aligned. And so we just need to be wise as Christians and not start playing the political game, but really vote from our faith and with faith.
Absolutely. Jessica Tapia, she's a mom. She's a public relations advocate for Advocates for Faith and Freedom. She's a proud Christian, and who knows, maybe even an aspiring politician. Jessica Tapia, thank you so much for calling in today, and Lord bless you as you continue following his will.
Thank you. God bless you, Pastor Jerry. Thank you.
All right, when we return here on Politics in the Pulpit, we're going to talk about some of the lunacy that's happening in Sacramento, and you will not believe how bizarre the Democrats are. If you think they could get more bizarre, you just wait to hear this story when we return on your hometown station. All right, we're back here for our final segment of Politics in the Pulpit on your hometown station. If you're just tuning in, we just got off the phone with Jessica Tapia. She, of course, is the public relations advocate now for Advocates for Faith and Freedom. Encourage you to check them out online and support their efforts. It's faith-freedom.com. And you can partner with them. You can support them financially. You can bring them up to your church and have, Red, White, and Blue Sunday or a Liberty Sunday or a Faith and Freedom Sunday, whatever you want to call it. I know we do a Red, White, and Blue Sunday. Ours is June 29th this year, and we've been doing it for several years at our church. It's good to be able to instill, if you will, biblically, the infusion of liberty and freedom and love for one's country with biblical truth. And churches have done that for years and years and years and years, especially in the founding of our country. And it's just as of late when churches and pastors have gotten kind of cowardice about that kind of stuff. So thankful for ministries and organizations like Advocates for Faith and Freedom and Pacific Justice Institute and the Lex Rex Institute and a whole host of others that do good pro bono work for the sake of those who are standing up for their faith. Former Vice President Dan Quayle said this one time, and I wrote it in the front of my Bible because it was a memorable quote. He said, "The only acceptable form of bigotry is bigotry against Bible-believing Christianity." And that was something that he said over 30 years ago. And many of us probably think right now that 30 years ago, was TV even, was it in color 30 years ago? But that was 30 years ago, and that's what he said 30 years ago. And think about, if you fast forward now 30 years later, especially during COVID, man, it was the thing to beat up against churches and ministries that stood up for right, wrong, good, and evil. Well, when it comes to good and evil, there's definitely a party in California that can't tell the difference between the two. I got a story here from Town Hall that just blows my mind. We actually covered this a little bit about a little over a year ago, when State Senator Shannon Grove from Kern County came on the show and talked about a bill that would basically penalize child sex traffickers. And you'd think this would be a no-brainer, that this would be something that both Republicans and Democrats could rally around. But listen to this. California lawmakers have voted down a measure that would make it a felony to buy 16 and 17-year-olds for sex. I'm not exaggerating. That's exactly what they did. California lawmakers here in our wonderful blue state voted down a measure that would make it a felony to buy 16 and 17-year-olds for sex. Assembly Bill 379 was introduced to crack down on sex trafficking, particularly those who traffic children. Here's what it says. Current law makes it a misdemeanor for anyone who solicits or engages in prostitution. But Assembly Bill 379 would make two major changes. It would make it a crime for anyone loitering for sex, and it would create a fund to help trafficking survivors. AB 379 would also make it a felony if an offender solicits sex with a person under the age of 18. Senate Bill 1414, a recently signed California law, currently makes it a felony to purchase or solicit a child 15 years and younger for sex. But it's only a misdemeanor if you're 16, 17, or 18. Interesting. Author of AB 379, Democrat Assembly member Maggie Krell, said at a news conference that sex trafficking survivors need more resources and that the criminal justice system has to crack down on the men who are buying them, the survivors, for sex. The bill also requires those arrested for prostitution to attend a diversion program to help get them out of the sex industry. However, California Democrats indicated on Monday that they would remove the felony charge from the proposed legislation. Now, I got to ask you a question. Why are certain Democrats removing the felony charge from the proposed legislations for those that are 16 and 17? Now, let's just use a little bit of logic here. Is it possible that there might be some within elected office? Is it possible? I don't know. Is it possible that there are those in elected office or friends of those in elected offices that might have a penchant for this type of behavior? And this is why they want to strike this out of the bill, because they don't want to hold themselves or maybe their very close donors or friends accountable for this type of behavior. Or maybe they don't want to fill the jails because there's just so many people that have this type of lewd sexual appetite. California Democrats have once again voted to block a Republican-backed bill that would make sex trafficking of minors a felony. It's just a misdemeanor, folks. Now, again, as I asked Jessica, as I asked Sonia Shaw a few weeks ago, and as I asked Sheriff Chad Bianco about a month ago, I pray and hope California is ready to turn the page on the corrupt current crop of Democrats in California. Now, I'll be honest with you. I don't think every Democrat sitting up there is as lewd as these who would strike the 16 to 17-year-old felony charge off this bill and just bring it down to a misdemeanor. But I do think there are folks out there that have really odd appetites. And I think they're just kind of covering their bases. Folks, again, I'm not certain, but it's very possible that they've got a fan base out there that just can't say no. Hopefully, a week from this Friday, we're going to be doing a special broadcast here on KHTS with newly Steve Hilton just recently threw in his hat in the race for the governor's race. And so we've been coordinating with his campaign, and so hopefully we're going to be able to get him in for a special broadcast. That's a week from this Friday. We'll let you know more about it. Just keep looking at KHTS Hometown Station on Facebook and check us out there, and you will see all the updates that you will need. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Again, encourage you to go out to Advocates for Faith and Freedom. Give them some support. Check out Jessica's story. Also, don't forget, check us out on Rumble, Politics in the Pulpit. You'll get the show commercial free. We'll see you next week. Take care.